What is going on, y'all? Welcome to 8 Cubes. I am KMBest, and I'm about to point the wrong direction. I am joined by Lambie Series, who is over there, not over there. And we are here to talk about the most important topics in Marvel Snap, starting with the Collector's nerf. Now, the Collector went from a 2-2 to a 2-0, very targeted at the Loki deck. Very, very clearly aimed at introducing some a bigger delta between when the Collector is good and when the Collector is bad. And that kind of makes sense to me because what they seem to be aiming for here is they want to make it so, yeah, when the Collector pops off, he's obviously ridiculous, but he's not as reliable as, say, Angela in the games where you're not popping off with him. And I think they do that a lot. I kind of don't love it, where their balanced strategy tends to be like, let's just add a little more RNG to the deck, make it a little harder, make it a little more reliant on the high roll. I don't think it's wrong. It's just a balanced strategy that, to me, increases the amount of non-games rather than actually dragging the deck's power level down as a whole. What are your thoughts on the Collector's nerf?
Alright, so I honestly think this Collector nerf might be a little bit harsh to the Collector himself, because I feel like outside of the Loki deck now, you can't really play this card. It's too it's like a horrible Angela outside of the Loki deck. Like in a Loki deck, it's still insanely strong. Like I've been testing it a little bit since the OTA.
Yeah.
On average, I still get it to 210, 212 quite easily, which is a monster for a 2-cost card. But like I don't see how this card can really function outside of like the Loki deck now. Like some people used to run it in like discard or whatever, right? Like in this card now, it's horrible. It's
But it was never good. Like that's my counterpoint, right? It was never good in those decks. People are like, oh yeah, I used to play this in bounce. Well, then you were playing a bad version of the bounce deck. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like it was never good there in the first place. So I get where Second Dinner is coming from here, but it does sort of feel like people that might have been able to try to have fun at least are now just not going to be able to play the card.
Maybe they were specifically trying not to hit Loki, which I also understand. But like hitting the Collector just makes it so that as of now, the only thing I can think of is actually running it in the Loki deck and nowhere else. And I think that might not be a good direction where this is going. But yeah, no, anyway, on that note, Collector is still insane in the Loki deck. And if anyone thinks that Loki is any worse, well, it is slightly worse, obviously, but it's nowhere far from the best deck.
Yeah, no, it is, in my opinion, still the best deck. And I think we actually are like 3 or 4 cards off. And we're still both pretty sure it's the best deck. Like, it's still extremely, extremely powerful. About as good as anything you can play. And it will still remain impacting the metagame. Did you see the win rate I had with that deck on ladder? I had like 250 games and like a 67% win rate. The world's most balanced
that's mad
deck.
Crazy high. Yeah, it's crazy high.
It's so messed up. It's so messed up. And now it is like 1% less messed up. But
which is not much. It's still way better than almost any other deck I've played so far.
It is still probably the front runner for best deck, and I'm only putting probably in there like because I want to cover my ass. I think it is the best deck.
Same.
Let's move on to the other major impactful change that could really impact this metagame, and that is Shadow King finally going to a 2-3. I am overjoyed to see this because when Shadow King was released, people would ask me like, all right, what would Shadow King have to cost for him to be playable? And I'd be like, oh, he'd have to be a 2-3. He would have to be a 2-3, and then he'd be competing for like the Scarlet Witch slot in any deck that played Scarlet Witch, like Sarah or something. And that is where he's at now. He is a totally reasonable card in Sarah, a totally reasonable card in like a Darkhawk deck. And right now the meta is more friendly to Shadow King than I think it ever has been. There is more increased power as compared to just playing big stuff than I can remember basically ever. And I think that this is a very impactful card, and I don't want to miss, we talked about the Sarah stuff, I don't want to miss that you can now play it on turn 5 alongside a wave. That's not nothing.
Yeah, so Shadow King was one of the first few cards that I tested after the OTA other than like Collector. Shadow King is crazy good right now. Like it's the perfect energy cost for a tech card. It's like how should I put it? I feel like this card right now literally you can put it in many decks and it's fine. It's just a 2-3. Like, even if you realize it's useless in a matchup, you just play it on turn 2 because it's 2-3. That's better than nothing. But like, obviously its intended purpose is to like kill off stuff like Collector, Angela, you name it, a lot. But like, the card is just so flexible, so functional right now. And even though I'm not a fan of like Sarah tech strategies in particular, it's gonna be like a one cost get rid of the Collector or Angela in Sarah decks, and like that's just messed up good. So like, I really do think that you can really splash Shadow King in like so many things. You just mentioned casually just now like Darkhawk Zabu strategies, right? Yeah, you just play that in Zabu Darkhawk as well, right? Because like your whole deck is sort of immune because you run Darkhawk, it's ongoing.
100% immune.
It just fits. Like, so I've been experimenting with like Darkhawk stuff as well with the Shadow King, and it kind of just works. So I'm excited for the Shadow King to be like actually a playable card right now, like splashable, playable, not just like in a surfer deck. I feel like people are just like playing every 3-cost card in a surfer deck, which is just wrong. So yeah, at least it's not a 3-cost card anymore. So it's gonna be playable in many other decks.
I honestly kind of wonder if he might be a little too strong as a 2/3. Like, not like, oh my god, this card is busted, but like, I wouldn't be shocked if he ended up as a 2/2 sometime in the future. Just when they like, the fact that he's a 2/3 right now, I think is very much because of Loki, right? They're just like, all right, look, we could be overestimating this. Like, we could be aiming a little bit high on making him a 2/3, but at least if we make him a 2/3, he'll push Loki down a little bit. And I think 2/3 Shadow King honestly seems eminently reasonable in the world that Loki creates. So I don't even think that like he's that busted or anything like that until people stop doing this. I am really interested in some sort of like Shadow King deck where you play like Mobius as well, and then suddenly I think you're really beating up Loki. And right now, I don't think that there's a deck that really beats up Loki while also being like kind of good elsewhere. And that kind of deck seems like it could exist when Mobius comes out.
Yeah, just for now specifically, I also feel like because of the existence of this very low cost tech card like Shadow King, like the Loki decks kind of have to play Cosmo now, right? Like they're like kind of
they
like
already
supposed. Yeah, but like they have to right now.
Yes.
Like those that not playing it like kind of have to right now, and like I guess you can say playing Dino now sort of semi mitigates the Shadow King's impact, but then again, then you open up Shang-Chi, so like
I tried that. When I tried the Dino thing, I was like, all right, we're going to mitigate Shadow King's impact with Cosmo and Dino. It's going to beat Cerebro 3, and then they can just play Shang-Chi. And it's like, oh,
yeah,
my bad. Like,
yeah, the counter decks probably play both right now, just to mitigate like both. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm still a Legion gamer. I find that the total lane control package is just too strong for me to ever even consider changing. Like Legion, Snowguard, Jeff, like you're just gonna get so many free wins off of that, and I remain committed to it. But I totally understand the Dino stuff. All right, so next up is mid-range. Loki has had an impact on the metagame such that a lot of mid-range decks just kind of get forced out because mid-range decks are fundamentally built on playing efficient threats that are better than what you typically get for the energy cost, and Loki just does that better than you. Lambie, you mentioned that you have been experimenting with some mid-range decks that you actually like. Would you like to take us through any of them?
Yeah, so there's actually 2 specific ones that I really hope can hold their own against Loki, because that's like the main concern, right? But so the first one that I've been trying is good old, amazing, and like just Zabu Darkhawk. Just Zabu Darkhawk. Because I feel like
we're so back.
I do enjoy that. Okay, I have like every Darkhawk variant in the game, and I also bought a new Zabu recently. So like I was trying the deck, Zabu Darkhawk, and like the 2/3 Shadow King really does like give it a certain like ability to compete versus the Loki decks, because like it's very convenient, right? Like even if you don't have Zabu out on turn 6, you can go like Darkhawk plus Shadow King, which is like a swing. It's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So that deck I feel has the potential to compete with the Loki deck, but I don't think it's gonna be like straight up favored, but like there's a chance. And also another one that I'm looking at is it's based on Jeff's Jun deck. You know, the one that like you discard stuff.
Oh, the Samurai Ghost Rider one?
Yeah, because that one you can literally just throw Shadow King in there, and your whole deck is kind of immune, right? Because you run stuff like Samurai, discard Iron Man, Ghost Rider, revive Iron Man. Now there's even Black Cat, right? Which also fills the... I mean, you play Zabu, and if you top deck Black Cat, it's a 3/9. So like Like
but like,
that's okay.
don't you just get like totally obliterated by Cosmo if you're a Ghost Rider gamer? Like that's
Yeah, I mean,
really my issue there. Is like your final turn is so often going to be like you want to play Ghost Rider and Shadow King on the final turn of the
yeah.
game, and it's like those both completely eat it to a Cosmo.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing. Like even my first case scenario, like the whole Zabu Dark Hawk one, it also kind of does die to Cosmo, right? Because they Cosmo your Shadow King on the final turn. So like at the end of the day, it's not gonna make like these decks like superior to Loki. But like I feel like there is a chance they can hold their own if you play smart. You try and dodge Cosmos. You maybe Shadow King a little bit less greedily, something like that. So I feel
Yeah.
like yeah, mid-range decks might come back. I don't see them actually dethroning the Loki deck, but like I do see them being able to hold their own with this new Shadow King.
I'm hopeful for at least the Darkhawk ones. They've done a lot to just
Yeah.
make the curve of that deck make more sense, be less reliant on Zabu. And I think that actually probably does go a long way here. I have always been a fan of those kind of decks. Just curve out, curve stone, play mid range paladin in Marvel Snap. I'm interested in experimenting with some Darkhawk. I think you're gonna lose a lot of the games where they Loki you is sort of the
Yes.
major issue you're gonna have.
There's one thing that I forgot to mention, which I think should be mentioned now, is that the Darkhawk build that I've been playing, and even the Jun deck that deck, I've been playing Killmonger in that deck. It's so strong. Like Killmonger right now is like stongs, right? Firstly versus HE stuff, all their premium early game is one cost. There's
Crushes
Quinjet.
Evo.
Sometimes it's that there's Kitty and there's Snow Guard. Like if you can hit the Quinjet with a Killmonger, it really slows the Loki deck down like tremendously.
That's
So I feel like
interesting.
being able to run Killmonger is actually quite strong in those mid-range shells.
So a lot of the time, what I'll find myself doing in those mid-range decks is not actually playing the Quinjet because I just want another one of their cards. Like a lot of the time, I'm already
Ooh.
doing that because it's just like I would like to get, I get like a 3 energy Iron Lad that's broken. Like I just get a bunch of broken stuff out of their deck.
Yeah,
So a lot of the time, I'm not actually playing Quinjet, but I don't know how common that is for people to
right.
do.
Yeah, so far I've been seeing people just play out a Quinjet just because like Killmonger is non-existent right
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
I do it if I have the refill, but if I don't have the refill or it's like kind of dicey on if I'm going to have the refill, I tend to keep it in my hand. On to everyone's favorite deck, Galactus. Everybody loves playing against Galactus. Everybody loves playing against Alioth. Oh, wait, I'm hearing everyone hates it and it's back. Would you care to comment on this?
Okay, so the funny thing is, when I first got Alioth, I was trying to play it in like all sorts of decks, and like the first time I actually felt that I didn't have to force Alioth to be good. And the truth is, right, like the people playing Alioth, a lot of them are actually forcing Alioth to be good. It's actually not
Yeah.
that good in many decks. It's good in
Yes.
very specific decks. And the one that I found it to be actually quite good is in this ramp Galactus Alioth deck that I played. So basically what you want to do is like you just like if you can get Galactus off, you obviously have initiative, right? And then you play Alioth, then you win. Like that's like a lockout. And I like it because you don't have to run stuff like Death, you don't have to run stuff like Null. Like the moment the Galactus goes off, you just win if you have
Yeah.
Alioth, right? So that deck I see potential, and obviously people hate the deck because there's no counterplay if the Galactus goes off. But like on the downside, the fact that the Galactus actually isn't easier to pull off, it's actually the same. It doesn't like Alioth doesn't make the Galactus easier to pull off. It's the same. So I feel like it's just about smart retreating, right? Like if you know they're gonna Galactus you and you can't do anything about it, well, don't stay for the snap, right? It's very simple. So I mean, it's really very simple. So actually, Galactus didn't get better. It's the same thing. It's just that now there is an easier way to like win the game post Galactus. So I think it's
Yeah,
just
no,
about being
that's why
smart
I'm
with
going to
your retreat.
disagree. I'm going to disagree. I think Galactus got some amount better because when
Okay.
you're a Galactus player and you have a null, right? And then you get that null Shang-Chi'd, that is costing you just a ton of cubes every single time.
Okay,
And
true,
now
true.
it is not doing that, right? Like now you are not getting Shang-Chi. You are not getting YOLO Rogue. You are not like all this stuff that previously would cost you a lot in terms of cube rate. Maybe not necessarily win rate, because a lot of people will leave on the Galactus because they're dead. Now they're actually dead though. Now they're
Yeah.
always dead, and you know that, and that means you have this degree of safety that was not previously there in the deck. And when that was not there, Like, basically, if anyone was staying in on Galactus and could actually beat your null, that would cost you a lot. And now it does not cost you anything.
Actually, no, you're right. Yeah, actually, yeah, I want to change my point. You're right. So, like, I think,
I won.
yeah, you're right. You're right. No, because the ease of pulling off Galactus does not change. It's the same, right?
Yeah.
But like, if the Galactus goes off, I feel like you get more retreats now because last time people will
Yes.
be like, all right, Galactus goes off, maybe I can shank them to try my luck. But now there is
Yeah.
no try my luck, right? Because like
No.
you always have to sort of respect the Alioth that's like almost always there, and like especially if they snap super early and then they play like Galactus and then like they've drawn like a few cards. You kind of know the Alioth is most likely there, and like you can't YOLO into it because if they have initiative, your cards don't flip because it's Alioth. So
Yep.
yeah, I think the actual post Galactus game plan is a lot better right now because people have to respect the Alioth whether it's actually there or not.
Yes, the hidden information on do I have Alioth, it almost doesn't matter because if they can't beat an Alioth, they can't really stay.
Yeah.
Next up, a question we get a ton is how to prioritize your purchases, how to figure out what should matter to you. So we wanted to do a couple segments on two commonly asked questions for us. The first one is going to be, should I get Alioth or should I get Iron Lad? And my impression here would be you should build towards decks, not cards. So a lot of it's going to be dependent on, you know, the other stuff that you have. But if you want to be a Galactus gamer, Alioth is, I would argue, if you want to play the best version of Galactus, you're going to need Alioth, right?
Yep.
It's not necessarily the best version by a huge margin, but it's the best version by some amount. Like, I think I can comfortably say that the best version of Galactus probably runs Alioth, and that's important. If you want to play Iron Lad, I think you're going to be looking at Darkhawk decks, at Patriot decks, at some of the wave mid-range Alioth decks even, actually. But I think right now, if you're going to spend 6,000 tokens on either of these, I would almost rather not spend it at all. I'm interested to hear what you think on this, because I do think they're relatively close. Iron Lad's probably ahead, but I'm not sure either of them meets the threshold for 6,000 token spending.
Yeah, so when it comes to Alioth versus Iron Lad specifically, my usual like advice is like if in the long run of Marvel Snap, right? Like I feel like Lad will be just generically better than Alioth because like Iron Lad is one of those cards that gets new use cases every time they actually print Marvel Snap cards, and they will obviously make new Marvel Snap cards, right? So like every time there's a new Marvel Snap,
they ever make new Marvel Snap cards?
So like every time there is a new Marvel Snap card, Iron Lad sort of gets a new use case, whether it's actually an amazing use case or not an amazing use case. It just works because Iron Lad like works with every card sort of. So I think Iron Lad in terms of like value for tokens is better than Alioth. Alioth now, or at least I feel like the way the card is 6 energy, 5 power, it's like it works a very specific way, and that's how it works. That's it, right? So I feel like Iron Lad versus Alioth specifically, I would always say Iron Lad has like more future value. But like I agree with you also because like both Iron Lad and Alioth in the state of like the current game is not like super mandatory anyway. So I feel like our next topic, we're gonna talk about a few other cards, which I think is like way more important than like these two cards in general at all.
On that note, let's talk about Legion versus Snowguard. I get a lot of people asking, and I honestly don't even understand why, because to me,
they're not the same card.
To me, the answer is just like incredibly obvious that Legion is a better card than Snowguard.
Yes.
And consistently will be better than Snowguard. And right now, Snowguard is at a very high point in value because of the Loki deck. Like, if you want to play the best Loki deck, having a card that puts 2 cards in your hand is super busted. Snowguard's really good for that right now. But Legion is a card that I'm running over frickin' Devil Dinosaur in a deck where your hand is full. Like, that is so insane. It is such an unbelievable card. Legion is one of one. And while Snowguard is fine, it does not get rid of locations permanently. And that's the biggest weakness that it has, which is if you want to get rid of a Nidavellir or a Necrotia forever, you can't do that. Snowguard, it'll come back when scoring is tallied after turn 6, no matter what. The only thing that it can get rid of is Limbo. That's the only thing it can actually stop from happening on turn 6. The rest of the stuff will come back. And because of that, Legion is just better. It just is.
Yeah, in general, Legion is definitely the better card, and actually, Legion is my most favorite Marvel Snap card in the game right now because okay, so Legion and Snowguard to me do one thing similar, which is that they are both like insane toolbox cards. Toolbox cards basically means cards that can be played in multitudes of ways and like gives you options, right? But the impact of playing out a Legion is like almost always more significant than the impact of playing out like Hawks and Bears because like you said, the Hawk doesn't actually like completely get rid of any location outside of outside of Limbo. Limbo is like the only time where I feel like I play Hawk, I feel better than like playing
Yeah.
Legion. Other than that, I feel like the Hawks and Bears do complement Legion a little bit as well, which is like you can do interesting and cute stuff. Like you can go like play the Hawk, especially on like Death's Domain or like Hawk on like
Yeah.
Altar of Death. Turn off stuff because you're the one doing it, right? So you're the one like putting cards there first. And then when things turn on again, you already have stuff there, then you play Legion, then their stuff
Yep.
blows up. You know, that kind of thing. So like I feel like I feel like Snow Guard benefits Legion a lot, but Legion as a standalone is already insane. So when it
Yes.
comes to spending your tokens, I would say prioritize Legion over like honestly even 6,000 like token
Yeah.
cards to be honest.
Oh God. Yeah.
But like I wouldn't prioritize Snow Guard if you don't have like specific other things that you want to like get to build a deck, right? But Legion, I feel
Yeah.
like you can get Legion and feel comfortable playing it in like almost any deck.
I would say getting Legion plus Snowguard is a better purchase than either Iron Lad or Alioth.
100%.
Let's move on to Discard, which has progressively gotten buffs and kind of gone nowhere, right? Blade just got buffed. Lady Sif just got buffed up to a 3/5. Like, at what point does Discard just get enough buffs to just be a good deck at raw stats? I know you mentioned that your Discord is going gaga for Discard right now. Do you have any insight on this archetype? Because I personally think it seems like kind of deck that caps out at tier 2, but who knows?
Yeah, so this card's issue is that okay, firstly, let's talk about the good thing about this card. This card has some very like uninteractable power. Like, okay, now that
Yeah.
firstly no one is playing Enchantress, so Morbius can go crazy. Dracula has always been uninteractable, right? It's just like the bane of everybody's like existence. It's so difficult to beat. So like this card has some really good things going for it. Plus swarms. Swarms are like 0 energy, 3 power. It's crazy. But like all these insane power bursts, free cards and everything. Like it sounds good on paper, right? But I feel like one reason why this card has never really been like top tiers because it's like the most linear deck on earth. Like they do it one way and they do it only well if they don't get interrupted. Like the deck is perfect and unbeatable if it works. If like you draw the stuff and you don't get interrupted. But let's be real here, especially in like Conquest, you're always gonna get interrupted. Locations are gonna like screw you over. And your opponent could just run a Cosmo and then your Modok is dead. You know, that kind of thing. So like I feel like this card is a perfect world deck. It's like one of the most perfect world decks ever, whereby like if it all goes right, you just win. But like it's never always gonna go right. So like I know there have been like a lot of builds out right now. Like people have been saying things like, oh, you can like tailor your swarms to like be discarded multiple times because of like Blade, right? Because Blade
Yeah.
always discards the far right now, which is not wrong.
Blade is
Yeah,
really good now. Like
it is. It
he's
is.
a really good card.
Yeah, it's not wrong. It's just that I feel like overall the discard game plan is a little bit too linear to be successful in Conquest. I guess maybe you could be scamming people on ladder a little bit with like good hands, but like for like Conquest matches, I'm a bit iffy on whether it's gonna be able to hold its own.
Finally, moving on to the Loki deck. I wanted to talk to Lambie because Lambie said just before the show that he realized why he liked Loki, and it was because it was similar to N'Zoth Priest from Hearthstone. Take it away, buddy.
Right, so this one is very interesting. I literally right before this recording, I was playing a few games and I played against this guy called Tiz. He was a former Hearthstone Grandmaster like myself. He's from it's from my region as well. So I played against him before and now he's playing Marvel Snap. So he was playing Loki and I was playing Loki. And when we were doing the matchup, I was like, wait, aren't we just generating a ton of low cost stuff, playing stuff everywhere, and then generating more low cost stuff? Why does this look so familiar? This is like N'Zoth Priest, which was like one of the top decks in like I think July 2021 or something back in Hearthstone. Yeah, so basically what I'm trying to say is that like recipes for good decks across multiple card games are like transferable, right? Like I don't know about MTG or like whatever other games, but like if you got like energy cheat, you got like random generation that's like sort of consistent and you get like spamming a lot of stats. I feel like it's just like a generic recipe for like good decks across multiple card games.
See, I think it's a bad comparison because I
Okay.
think it's impossible for anything in Marvel Snap to be the equivalent of Priest. Because the defining
Okay.
characteristic of Priest and Hearthstone, to me at least, is that every game takes 20 minutes.
That's true.
Like, Hearthstone, like this is actually something I've been thinking about a lot, actually. A lot of other games are attrition based, right? They're about depleting your opponent's resources and trading things off, right? And using your skill at card games to do that. And I think Priest especially is so attrition based when you're playing like a priest on priest mirror in Hearthstone. And in Marvel Snap, that concept just almost isn't real. The closest thing to like a value trade is they put a 2-power thing there and you put a 3-power thing there, and then you're ahead on board space. Like, it's a very interesting thing because like the game is so different, but you're right that the formula remains the same because energy cheat is really messed up.
Yep. And like discounted random generation, which is sort of curated, because like if you play Loki, you kind of know what you're getting, right? You
Yeah.
can't be Lokiing blind. You kind of need to know what you're Lokiing to find as well. Like versus the high evo that you Loki them on turn 4 to get the 5 energy doom. That's messed up good, right? So like
Yep.
stuff like that. So I feel like, yeah, I'm not saying that I only like random generation, but like if random generation is discounted, it's insanely strong. So recipe for a good deck. And the funny thing, like you mentioned, attrition based in Marvel Snap, you're right. There's actually no real attrition based
Yeah.
like strategy. But like it's funny because like you can play a control deck in Marvel Snap and you just need to control them for 6 turns. You know,
Yeah,
like
it's a very
control.
different type of
Yeah, it's
thing.
weird, but like
Yeah.
you know.
All right, y'all. That's going to be it from us for today. For Lambie series, who's over there, not over there. I have been KMBest. Thank you so much for watching. We will see you in the next one.
See you guys.